Most people think they make decisions logically. They don't. A lot of what feels like a choice is actually a reaction to timing, to tone, to body language, to pressure, to the feeling of control. And once you start seeing the pattern, people stop feeling random. You start noticing what creates trust, what triggers resistance, and what quietly pushes a person toward yes or no. In this video, I'm not just giving you tricks. I'm showing you the mechanism underneath them, so you can use this in real life, not just repeat advice you heard online. Here's the simple model for this whole video. Every technique works more or less the same way. First there's a trigger, then the brain gives it meaning, then behavior follows. So instead of memorizing lines, you're going to understand the chain. And we're starting with one of the easiest things to notice, and one of the most powerful. If you want someone to relax around you faster, don't start with your words. Start with rhythm. Mirroring is when you subtly match the other person's posture, their speaking pace, their level of energy, sometimes a few gestures too. Not obviously, not like a parody, just enough to make the interaction feel smooth. Why does it work? Because the brain is constantly scanning for one basic thing. Are you with me or against me? And similarity often reads as safety. When someone moves like us, speaks at a pace that feels familiar, and generally feels socially easy to read, the brain lowers its guard a little. That doesn't guarantee trust, but it opens the door to it. The important part is this: don't just copy the outside. Match the emotional tempo. If they're quiet and calm, and you come in with high sales energy, it feels fake. If they're fast and direct, and you're too soft and stretched out, you miss the connection too. So the real formula is simple. Match first, lead later. And once that door to trust starts to open, the next question is this: how do you make agreement feel natural before the other person even answers? Here's a tiny move that can change the whole tone of a conversation. When you make a key point, give a small, natural nod. Not too much. Not like a bobblehead. Just a light signal. Why does that matter? Because people don't think with the brain alone. The body feeds the brain signals all the time. When a person starts nodding, even slightly, the conversation can begin to feel more aligned. Like, yeah, this makes sense. This is not hypnosis. A nod won't turn a bad argument into a good one. But if the person is already open, your body language can reduce internal resistance. That's the mechanism. You're not forcing agreement. You're making agreement feel easier than opposition. And a lot of persuasion starts exactly there. Not with one big yes, but with a small low-friction yes first. If this is already clicking for you, hit like. Because the next one takes this same principle and turns it into a full strategy. Let's say you want a big favor. Most people make the same mistake. They go straight for the big ask. And a big ask creates pressure. And pressure creates defense. Foot in the door works differently. You start with something small, easy, almost automatic. Then later, you move to what you actually want. Why does this work? Because after people say yes once, they don't just remember the action. They slightly update their self-image. The brain likes consistency. So after one small yes, it becomes easier to do something bigger that fits the same story. I help. I support this. I'm involved. That's why this doesn't only work for favors. It works in sales, in leadership, in parenting, in dating, anywhere identity matters. The mechanism is simple. Small action first. Identity shift second. Bigger action third. So if you want cooperation, don't ask for full commitment right away. Ask for small participation first. And here's the interesting part. There's a reverse version of this. And sometimes it works even faster. This one works in the opposite direction. Instead of starting small, you start too big. With something they'll probably say no to. Then you step back and present what you really wanted from the start. Why can this work? For two reasons. First, contrast. A moderate request feels much smaller when it comes right after a ridiculously large one. Second, reciprocity. When you lower your ask, it can feel like a concession. And people often feel pressure to respond to a concession with a concession of their own. So the mechanism is not about shocking someone into yes. It's about resetting their sense of scale and making your real request feel more reasonable. But there's a limit. If the first ask is completely absurd, you don't look smart. You look manipulative. This only works if the first request still feels believable. And that leads to something even deeper. Before people evaluate your request, they evaluate you. And that's where a very simple move starts to matter a lot more than people think. A person's name is not magic, but it is a very short path to their attention. In any conversation, the brain is constantly filtering. What matters? What doesn't? What's about me? What isn't? And a name immediately sends a signal. This matters to you. That's why using someone's name at the right moment can pull their attention back, lower distance, and make the interaction feel more personal. But here's the common mistake. People overdo it. If you say my name every other sentence, it doesn't feel warm. It feels scripted. So use it where it actually has force. At the beginning, before an important ask, when you need to bring attention back, or when the conversation becomes emotional. Mechanically, a name works like an anchor. It recenters the other person inside the interaction. And then the next question is this. What do you do when someone dodges the question, hesitates, or gives you half an answer? That's where silence starts doing the heavy lifting. If you ask an important question and then immediately fill the silence, you just cut your own leverage. Silence works because for most people, an unanswered moment feels like tension. And tension wants closure. So when you ask, what's really going on here? Or, what exactly is stopping you? And then you stay quiet. The other person will often keep talking on their own. Not because you forced them, but because the brain wants to close the open loop. That's the mechanism. You create tension, and you don't remove it for them. Silence also does something else important. It signals confidence. When you don't rush to save the conversation, don't jump in to explain yourself, and don't overtalk, the power balance shifts. But silence only works if it feels calm. If your face says I'm trying to trap you, people shut down. If your silence says take your time, I'm listening, people open up more often. And now for a really counterintuitive one. If you want someone to start liking you more, sometimes it helps not to help them first. This one sounds backwards. You'd think people start liking you more because you help them. And sometimes that's true. But there's another route. People can also start liking you more after they help you. Why? Because the brain doesn't like inconsistency. If I spend time or effort on you, my mind wants a reason that makes sense of that behavior. So it may quietly land on something like this. Well, I probably did that because I like them. Or at least because they seem decent. That's the mechanism. Action comes first. Explanation comes second. So if someone feels cold, distant, or just neutral, a small, reasonable favor can warm the relationship faster than offering help first. The key word is small. Not heavy. Not awkward. Not a loyalty test. Just enough investment to create a little psychological connection. If you're still here, drop a comment and tell me which of these you've already seen in real life. Because the next one is useful. But it needs a quick warning label. Timing changes decisions more than most people realize. When someone is mentally tired, they often have less energy for resistance. Less energy to analyze. Less energy to argue. Less energy to hold a hard boundary right now. That's why some requests get accepted late in the day that would have started a full debate earlier. But here's the important caveat. The old idea of ego depletion is debated in psychology, so let's not turn it into mysticism. The practical pattern is still easy to see. Tired people often simplify. And one form of simplification is, fine, let's just do it this way. So the mechanism here is simple. Lower mental energy can mean lower active resistance. But use this carefully. If you push important decisions on exhausted people, you may get compliance now and resentment later. And that leads to a smart question. How do you guide a decision without making the other person feel controlled? That's where choice architecture comes in. People don't like being cornered. A direct order almost always creates friction, because it hits the feeling of autonomy, even if the action itself is perfectly reasonable. So instead of asking, "Are you going to do this?" you change the frame to, "Which way works better for you?" That's why this works so well with kids, clients, teams, basically anyone with an ego, which is all of us. The mechanism is simple. When people feel their control is still intact, resistance goes down. They stop fighting the fact of action and start choosing the form of the action. So instead of saying, "Can you send this today?" try, "Would you rather send it before lunch or by the end of the day?" Same destination, less friction. But if people feel you're giving them fake choice, trust drops fast. So both options have to be real, reasonable, and respectful. And now the last one, maybe the strongest of all, because IT doesn't just affect a moment. It can change how a person starts seeing themselves. This one goes deeper than persuasion. It can change not just a decision, but the standard of behavior itself. The Pygmalion Effect is the idea that expectations can shape outcomes. If you consistently treat someone as capable, responsible, thoughtful, sharp, they often start leaning toward that version of themselves. Why? Because expectations change behavior on both sides. You start speaking differently, giving feedback differently, offering trust differently, responding to mistakes differently, and the other person responds to that environment. So when you say things like, "You seem like the kind of person who follows through," or "I can tell you care about doing this right," that's not just a compliment. That's an identity offer. And people really don't like falling below a positive identity they've just been handed, especially if it feels sincere. That's the mechanism. You give someone a standard, and they may start rising to meet it. If you want, I can make a part 2 about the dark side of these tactics, how people use them on you, and how to spot them in real time. That's the big idea. Don't memorize lines. Understand the mechanism. When you can see what builds trust, what lowers resistance, and what shapes how people see themselves, you stop guessing. And the line matters. Using psychology to communicate better is one thing. Using it to trap people is something else. In the long run, the most powerful things are still clarity, timing, and respect. If this format was useful, subscribe. And tell me in the comments what you want next. Negotiation, dating, sales, or just everyday conversations.